Authority doesn't always come from the government. Sometimes it comes from entitlement, from someone who's watched the system work for them long enough to believe they are the system. And when that belief meets a black motorist, reality doesn't matter nearly as much as confidence does. Because black people don't get the luxury of assuming a mistake. We assume survival. That's why this story matters. This isn't about one man lying. It's about how easily power can be borrowed when the target is black. Welcome to Black Joy Interrupted, where we examine real stories involving black people and break down what actually happened, what made it possible, and why these situations keep repeating. This story didn't involve a verified federal officer, it didn't involve a marked patrol car, and it didn't involve any legal authority at all. But what it did involve was fear. It involved intimidation, and a white man with the audacity to decide that he could borrow the power of the state long enough to detain black motorists in public. In November 2025, two black men were pulled over on 24th Street in Galveston, Texas. There was no marked police vehicle, no visible department insignia, and no officer introducing himself by name. Instead, a man wearing a military-style uniform conducted what appeared to be a traffic stop. He held their identification cards. He shined a flashlight directly into people's faces, and he searched the motorist's truck while the driver and his passenger stood outside, compliant. Several bystanders noticed the encounter and began filming. One of them, Robert Harvey, immediately sensed something was off. At first glance, the man appeared to be performing the motions of a real officer, but the details didn't match. There was no patrol car, no familiar uniform, and there was a tool belt that didn't resemble standard law enforcement gear. Harvey later described the outfit.
First, it was the no police car, and then it was his uniform. I mean, I've never seen police in a uniform like that. And his tool belt and all of his stuff, I mean, it looked like it had just came in from Temu or Amazon or something.
As Harvey and other bystander, Bruce Redman, approached, they began asking basic questions.
Good night. Who are you?
Can I help you with something?
Hey, man, don't be shining that light in my friend's face.
No, you cannot.
What's your problem, man?
What's your problem?
Who are you?
I don't have a problem with you filming me. I don't care.
Who are you? Name and badge number. Get your camera, get your light out of my camera.
You're not an officer.
Name and badge number.
I don't have to give it to you.
You're not a real cop. Stop shining that light in my eyes.
Quit bothering people. You ain't a cop.
Where's my light at? Get his tag number.
So, all right, you see it? Do you see it? Good.
You just hit me in the face with it.
You see it? It's good.
You just hit me in the face.
I'm gonna mace you, bro.
You see it? It's right there. Good.
You just hit me in the face with that.
Yeah, he just assaulted you. I got it on video. You just assaulted him.
Tell him to come.
Now he's fleeing the scene. Fleeing the scene.
As you saw for yourself, when pressed, the fake agent became hostile. He shined his flashlight into the eyes of Harvey and his friends who were filming him. He attempted to leave the scene quickly, but before he could, he was challenged again. He responded by shoving his badge in their faces. Moments later, he entered the passenger seat of an unmarked blue vehicle and left the area. The men who had been detained were released without any paperwork, explanation, or record. Harvey and Redman immediately reported the incident to nearby police officers.
Thank you for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Keith Garvin. Caught on camera, police arrested this man, 44-year-old Joshua Warner, last week on charges of impersonating an officer. Warner is accused of trying to detain two people in Galveston. KPRC2 News reporter Corley Peel spoke with the witnesses who helped catch him and shares a request from police tonight.
Name and badge number.
I don't have to give it to you.
You're not a real cop.
Joshua Warner caught on Robert Harvey's live stream, allegedly posing as an ICE agent on November 9th. Harvey grew suspicious, passing this scene on 24th Street in Galveston.
Somebody's searching that truck. That white truck. Look. Yeah. Who the hell is that? They're shining a flashlight in his face.
What about this stop made you realize that this was a red flag? This doesn't seem legit.
Yeah, first it was the no police car. Then when we got out, like I just mentioned, he was quickly trying to get rid of him and get away. He started to walk away and we were like, hey, stop. And then it was his uniform. I mean, I've never seen police in a uniform like that. And his tool belt and all of his stuff, I mean, it looked like it had just came in from Temu or Amazon or something.
What the hell did we just see? That ain't even a cop.
As Harvey and his friend Bruce Redman approach Warner, he appears to tell the two men he stopped they can go.
Who are you?
Can I help you with something?
I immediately asked him, hey, who are you? What are you doing? What's your name and badge number? And then the fact that he wouldn't give me a name and badge number was another red flag.
You see it?
He ended up getting his fake badge out of the car, and then he actually hit my friend Bruce in the face with it.
Harvey and his friend notify police nearby. On December 22nd, Galveston police confirm he posed as an ICE agent and arrested Warner at his home, finding a fake law enforcement badge and ID card and seizing his car that resembled an unmarked patrol car.
We were very pleased that they took it seriously and did an investigation and arrested this guy, because that's a dangerous person.
They all understood something important. A bad cop is dangerous, but someone pretending to be a bad cop is worse. After an investigation, Galveston police identified the man in the video as Joshua Warner, a 44-year-old Galveston resident. Warner was arrested and charged with 2 counts of impersonating a public servant for allegedly posing as an immigration and customs enforcement agent. At the time of Warner's arrest, the authorities also confirmed that they're searching for additional victims because this likely wasn't his first time impersonating ICE agents. Here's what makes this a Black Joy Interrupted story, is that the black men who were stopped didn't know he was a fraud. They didn't know they were dealing with a civilian. They didn't know they were being conned. And they didn't know how much danger they were actually in. Because when they complied, they weren't just being polite. And they weren't just being cautious. They handed over their identification, which means they handed their names, addresses, and their personal information over to a stranger with no authority, no oversight, and no obligation to protect them. That's the interruption. They made themselves vulnerable to someone who could have detained them longer, escalated the situation physically, followed them later, shown up at their homes, or used fear to push the situation even further. And they did it because history teaches black people that resisting authority, even suspected authority, can get you hurt or unalived. Because if those white men hadn't shown up when they did, there's no guarantee this situation would have stopped where it did. No cameras, no witnesses, no accountability. Just black men alone with someone who believed he had the right to control them. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a setup. And the scariest part is this. The fake ICE agent didn't need a badge. He didn't need a uniform. And he didn't need legal standing. All he needed was the confidence to claim power and the knowledge that black people are conditioned to comply first and question things later. That's not a flaw in black men. That's a flaw in the system that trained them to believe their safety depends on obedience. And that's why this story isn't just about a man pretending to be ICE. It's about how easily black people can be coerced into surrendering their autonomy, their safety, to someone who never had the right to demand it. And this didn't happen in a vacuum. Since Donald Trump returned to office and restarted aggressive immigration enforcement, critics have warned that these tactics create the perfect cover for impersonation. When real agents don't clearly identify themselves, when transparency becomes optional, and when intimidation is treated like a tool instead of a red flag, it becomes nearly impossible for civilians to tell the difference between actual authority and a performance. And this isn't hypothetical. Across the country, people have already been arrested for posing as ICE agents, using that fear to commit crimes including kidnapping and sexual assault. This case fits that pattern. He didn't need real authority. All he needed was the confidence, the audacity, and the knowledge that resisting can get black people hurt or unalived. That's what happens when enforcement culture teaches intimidation instead of legitimacy. And again, this wasn't just an impersonation. This was authority cosplay. And cosplay only works when the audience is conditioned to believe the costume. Question: how many people do you think are out there who have complied with him because they didn't feel safe to refuse him? Nationwide, how many fake stops go unreported because the victim just wants to safely go home? What happens when the appearance of authority becomes more powerful than actual authority? And who benefits when hate and intimidation do the enforcing? If you've seen or have experienced something like this, document it and speak on it. Not for outrage, but for record-keeping purposes. And if you find content like ours informative, don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on true stories highlighting our interruptions. You've been watching Black Joy Interrupted, where every interruption gets exposed and its blueprint brought to light.